Imagine this, a teenager in Kiev, sitting in his room surrounded by cables, a 3D printer, and the glow of YouTube tutorials, quietly building something that's changing the face of modern war. Not a scientist, not a soldier, just an 18-year-old gamer who decided to fight back. What he created wasn't a video game weapon or a gadget prototype, but a real-life drone killer, a low-cost shotgun round that fires a net, capable of bringing down Russian FPV drones mid-flight. It sounds like a wild story, but it's very real, and it's saving lives. 4 years into the war, as both Ukraine and Russia battle not just on the ground but through constant bursts of technological one-upmanship, this young inventor's idea has become one of Ukraine's most unexpected secret weapons. While defense giants and NATO labs work on million-dollar solutions, one teenager with revenge and resourcefulness on his side may have outsmarted them all. But this kind of creativity isn't new to Ukraine. Since the first days of the invasion, innovation has become a survival skill. The country's defense industry has already pushed boundaries with its fleet of airborne and naval drones, changing how wars are fought. Yet some of the smartest ideas aren't coming from boardrooms or labs. They're born in muddy trenches and makeshift shelters. Soldiers have started using fishing nets to block drone attacks over their bunkers and supply routes, turning everyday tools into shields against the sky. And it's no wonder. Drones have completely reshaped this war. When Russia stormed into Ukraine in early 2022, it did so the old-fashioned way. Tanks, jets, and waves of troops advancing across the land. Ukraine met that firepower head-on, but it also brought something new to the fight: drones. Back then, drones were mostly for scouting or precision strikes. Think of the American Reaper or Turkey's Bayraktar. Impressive, but limited in number. Fast forward to today, and drones aren't just an accessory. They are the battlefield. Cheap, fast, and deadly FPV drones now swarm over trenches and tank convoys, making even the most advanced armor like Russia's T-90M or America's M1 Abrams vulnerable. The roar of engines and artillery has been replaced by the constant buzz of propellers, where a $500 drone can destroy a $1 million machine. The skies over Ukraine have become more dangerous than ever. According to the Kyiv Independent, NATO estimates that over 60% of Russia's massive tank losses have been caused not by missiles or artillery, but by small, explosive FPV drones. The same pattern shows up on the other side too. Medics say roughly 2/3 of Ukraine's battlefield casualties now come from drone strike. In today's war, soldiers can be hit up to 20 miles from the front lines, where swarms of kamikaze drones sweep across the landscape like metal hornets, hunting anything that moves: bunkers, vehicles, or lone soldiers caught in the open. At first, Ukraine had the edge. Outnumbered and outgunned, it found power in the air. With fewer troops and tanks than Russia, Ukraine doubled down on technology, turning drones into its equalizer. By 2024, President Volodymyr Zelensky announced that the country had produced around 2.2 million drones in a single year. That staggering number changed everything. It slowed Russian advances to a crawl and inflicted losses that traditional weapons simply couldn't manage. A single FPV drone, costing less than a gaming console, could destroy a multi-million-dollar tank. But Russia wasn't standing still. Its vast factories and industry might slowly begin to close the gap. While Ukraine's drone innovation thrives in hundreds of small, scattered workshops, from cramped apartments to basement labs near the front, Russia's production has become centralized and massive. Inside a sprawling plant in Alabuga, Tatarstan, engineers are reportedly building up to 5,000 Garand, also known as Shahed, loitering munitions each month. These are the same drones that rain down on Ukrainian cities nearly every night. Even after Ukrainian strikes have repeatedly hit the facility, production continues, a testament to how deep Russia's manufacturing capacity runs. And there's more. Russia's latest advantage lies in fiber optic FPV drones. Instead of using traditional GPS signals that can be jammed or disrupted, these machines are connected to their operators through miles of thin fiber optic cable. It's an old-school solution to a modern problem, and it works. These drones are practically immune to Ukraine's electronic warfare tactics, which once gave Ukrainian forces a vital edge. As a result, dogfights between drones have become a new kind of aerial duel, fought not with pilots but with code, signal strength, and reflexes. This shift in technology has transformed the battlefield into something that looks more like a live video game than traditional warfare. Operators sit in bunkers with goggles and controllers, guiding their machines miles away through forests, ruins, and open fields. Every soldier knows that danger no longer comes just from the horizon. It can now drop from the sky without warning, silent until it's too late. For Ukraine, defending against drones has become nothing short of a daily obsession. Every night brings a new challenge, a relentless game of cat and mouse where each side races to outsmart the other. The pace is dizzy. Sometimes only a few weeks pass between one side inventing a new countermeasure and the other finding a way around it. In this constant back and forth, Ukraine's survival depends not just on how fast it can shoot down drones, but on how fast it can adapt. The first and most urgent task is stopping Russia's nightly drone swarm. Waves of explosive aircraft sent to strike cities, power stations, and infrastructure hundreds of miles from the front. These assaults have grown massively in 2025, with anywhere from 150 to 700 drones launched in a single night. Most of them are Garand 2 and Garand 3 models, Russian versions of Iran's notorious Shahed 136. They're cheap, loud, and slow. So loud, in fact, that Ukrainians often call them flying lawnmowers. Their droning sound is both a warning and a threat, echoing through the night as air defenses light up the sky. On paper, Ukraine's results look impressive. The military claims to shoot down over 90% of these drones using advanced systems like the Patriot, IR, ISTSLM, and NASAMS, along with AIM-9L Sidewinder and AIM-120 AMRAAM missiles fired from its F-16. But there's a catch: cost. While a Russian Juran might cost anywhere from $30,000 to $100,000, the missiles used to destroy it can be dozens of times more expensive. A single Patriot missile costs between $4 million and $7 million. Even the smaller IRIS-T and AMRAAM interceptors run between $470,000 and $1.2 million each. That kind of math just doesn't add up. Ukraine could burn through its entire stockpile of Western air defense missiles in a matter of weeks trying to down drones that cost a fraction of the price. And replacing them isn't easy. Global demand for these systems is sky high, and manufacturers can only produce a few hundred of each per year. So, while using these high-end weapons keeps cities safe, it's also financially and logistically unsustainable. This has pushed Ukraine to look for smarter, cheaper ways to fight back. From radar-guided guns and laser systems to experimental jammers and even drone-on-drone combat, engineers, volunteers, and soldiers alike are working around the clock to design weapons that can stop a swarm without bankrupting the country. Every night's attack becomes both a battle and a live experiment, forcing Ukraine's defenders to innovate in real time. Because in this war, standing still means falling behind. Picture this: waves of cheap fake drones are sent up like sparrows to make defenders waste their most precious ammo. And it actually works. Up to 40% of the drones launched in Russian swarms are decoys that look and sound like the real Garans but carry no explosives. Their whole job is to trick Ukraine into firing expensive interceptors, leaving the real, heavy Garans free to fly through the gaps and smash into power stations or neighborhoods. It's a nasty little trick that turns the cost math and the logistics calendar against the defenders. If Ukraine can't afford to use its top-tier interceptors every time a buzzing target appears over a city, imagine the front line where everything moves faster and cheaper. Blowing a $500,000 missile on a drone worth a few tens of thousands is just not realistic. Worse, many FPV attack drones or simple surveillance quadcopters cost a tiny fraction of that, which means Ukraine needs other ways to stop them that don't eat up precious missile stocks. That's why a second fight, the anti-FPV and anti-surveillance battle on the front, matters so much. Ukraine has poured resources into electronic warfare and detection. It fields thousands of systems like Skywiper and Omni jammers, radio frequency sensors, and portable drone defeat units. Around 300 sensor posts have been set up along the front to pick up the signals of hundreds of different drone models at range. Those sensors act like neighborhood watch cameras for the sky. They can tell operators when something is coming and what kind of system it is, which helps choose the cheapest, fastest way to stop it. But even this tech has limits. Fiber optic FPV drones don't broadcast the usual radio or GPS signals. They're connected to their pilots by miles of thin fiber cable, so jammers and spoofers can't touch them. And many drones fly above the range of ground systems. That means some threats simply shrug off the jammers, so defenders must fall back to a different kind of answer. Lead. Yes, bullets. Good. Old bullets are proving to be one of the most reliable defenses against close, fast targets. But the guns aren't just rusty old machine guns. They're modern autocannons and linked weapon systems built to track and put rounds into tiny, fast targets automatically. A UK-supplied Paladin, for example, uses a 30mm Bushmaster to engage drones nearly 2 miles away with proximity-fused rounds that detonate near the target. Australian Slinger units use a 30 by 113mm Bushmaster M230 LF cannon to do much the same, automatically tracking and killing threats at half-mile ranges and beyond. On top of those, Ukraine is getting cutting-edge kit like the Wolf 25 anti-drone prototypes and other purpose-built systems designed specifically to defeat swarms and FPV attackers. The aim is simple: stop drones cheaply and quickly before they can force defenders to waste their highest-value missiles or before they reach towns and soldiers. Each layer, sensors, jammers, guns, and smart new systems, links to the next, because no single tool is enough when the enemy keeps changing its tricks. One of the heavy hitters now on the battlefield is the Wolf 25 AD. Think of it as a smart armored sentry that combines old-school firepower with modern sensors. It's fitted with a remote-controlled Manguard 25 turret carrying a 25mm Oerlikon KBA automatic cannon and an 8-barrel smoke grenade launcher to throw up instant screens. The gun can fire airburst rounds that detonate near a target, regular explosive shells, or armor-piercing rounds depending on what it faces. 4 Rheinmetall radars give the Wolf 25 full 360-degree coverage, spotting bigger loitering drones like Lancets 5 to 6 miles out and small recon or FPV quadcopters up to about 3 miles away. That range lets ground crews get warning and respond before things get too close. Up in the air, Ukraine is also leaning harder on helicopters. A tactic that's proven effective pairs 2 choppers, one packed with sensors and guidance gear, often the Teledyne FLIR multi-sensor suite, and the other carrying weapons. The sensor bird finds the drone and guides the shooter, and together they've been known to take down a large share of targets. Commanders say helicopters can shoot down as many as 40% of the drones that enter their patrol zones. But the real game changer for many frontline units is the Sky Sentinel, a homegrown, AI-driven turret that's basically a self-thinking sentry. Yuri. It's an autonomous system built around a heavy machine gun that rotates a full circle and locks onto threats on its own. Feed it radar data, give a remote green light, and Sky Sentinel will track flight paths, calculate firing solutions, and engage fast movers from tiny quadcopters to larger loitering munitions. It's so good at hitting small, speedy targets that soldiers nicknamed it the Shahed Catcher. Sky Sentinel can handle drones moving at 125, 250, even 500 miles per hour, and it's used both to guard cities and to protect high-risk frontline spots. Each unit costs roughly $150,000, but it shoots standard machine gun rounds, so keeping it supplied is far cheaper than burning expensive interceptors. Sky Sentinel is powerful, but it's just the start, and there aren't nearly enough of them yet. To defend even one city properly, you'd likely need 10 to 30 turrets, so most frontline troops still have no automatic sentry watching their backs. That means ordinary soldiers often have to fend off drones with whatever they've got: standard machine guns, rifles, or even shotguns. That gap is exactly where Yuri's idea became vital. A high schooler from Kiev's Shulyavka neighborhood, he was still in 11th grade when he started tinkering. Shulyavka saw heavy fighting early in the war and has been hit by drones and missiles many times, so Yuri grew up with the problem in his face. Too young to join the army but desperate to help, he spent hours on YouTube learning 3D printing and DIY engineering and started dreaming of simple, cheap ways to protect people. His first thought was quieter drone propellers, but the real spark came while playing a first-person shooter with a friend who knew a bit about ammunition. Between game rounds, they joked and sketched, and the idea of a net-firing anti-drone round, something you could shoot from a shotgun, clicked. He and a partner whipped up a prototype and showed it to soldiers from the Presidential Brigade. The soldier liked it, but the unit couldn't take it on without formal testing. Then, the breakthrough came from the 3rd Assault Brigade, a unit famous for using drones and trying new tactics. The officer who inspected the device couldn't believe the creators were still students. "What kids are making ammunition?" he asked, and then proudly, "Ukrainian kids." He promised to arrange tests, and, true to his word, a few weeks later Yuri was at a training center where they could safely fit an explosive charge and run proper trials. Handling explosives in wartime is tightly controlled, so this step was a big deal. It meant the idea had moved from a bedroom project to something the Army could seriously evaluate.
If you've made it this far into the video, it means you're enjoying what we do here at Euro Bulletin. Take a second to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss more updates and insights from Europe and its partners. Let's dive in more into the subject.
Imagine building something in your bedroom and then hearing that it just saved soldiers' lives. That's what happened to Yuri. He couldn't legally work with explosives because Article 263 of the Criminal Code bars minors from getting authorization, and breaking that law can mean prison. Still, after early tests at a training site, an officer told him the device was promising but practical. "In our brigade, we have more shotguns than grenade launchers. Can you make it for shotguns?" Yuri and his team swapped calibers in days and sent out new samples. 2 weeks later, the officer messaged, "It works." He ordered 100 units for combat trials. That fast decision-making is part of Ukraine's wartime tech culture. Small teams move quickly, but there's no smooth path from prototype to mass production. So many good ideas never scale. Yuri hadn't planned for volume or the headaches of producing hundreds of munitions. Their first real test was tense. Watching a brigade training video, Yuri saw a round jam and heard the instructor joke, "Now I'm going to die." And the joke landed like a punch. He felt sick. If a weapon fails, someone could be killed. Then came better news. A special forces team near Kursk called to report success. They'd used Yuri's shotgun rounds to bring down a Mavic reconnaissance drone at 165 feet and to stop 2 FPV attack drones. That call confirmed his fear had been worth facing. The idea worked, and people were safer because of it. From there, they shifted into startup mode, redesigning parts, writing firmware, testing, pitching to partners, and hunting for funding. Yuri applied to Brave One, Ukraine's main defense tech cluster, which is already backing similar low-cost anti-drone munitions for frontline troops. The team's path, from bedroom tinkering to fielded device to courting grants, shows how a simple, cheap idea can jump the gap between desperation and life-saving kit, even when the rules and the supply chains make every step risky. Now Ukrainian innovators are pushing cheap, practical answers straight into soldiers' hands. In late June, the Brave One cluster rolled out a new kind of ammo for standard infantry rifles that looks like a normal 5.45mm cartridge but is built to break apart mid-air. After it's fired, the bullet splits into about 5 fast pellets, so a burst of rounds makes a shotgun-like spray in the sky, enough to catch a fast FPV drone out to roughly 165 feet. The shells are already approved for use and are being handed out to frontline troops, 1 magazine per soldier, and they load just like any other clip. Brave One also lists a pocket-sized jammer it calls an anti-drone pistol. It's a personal electronic warfare tool that uses radio interference to upset enemy FPV controls. At 2.2 pounds, it's light enough to carry on patrol, and the makers say it can jam signals at over 300 feet, giving a soldier a simple, non-lethal way to blind a hostile drone nearby. Not all solutions come from the same place. A Ukrainian defense firm, Teneta, makes the Mittler net launcher, a tiny single-use countermeasure that throws an entangling net at close drones. It weighs under 13 ounces, is only 7.8 inches long, and 1.6 inches inches across and fits in a pouch or pocket. Fire it, and a 7.62mm pyrotechnic cartridge shoots an 11.5 by 11.5 foot net up to about 82 feet to tangle the rotors. No power, no setup, just aim and shoot. All three approaches, rifle fragmenting ammo, portable jammers, and pocket net launchers, try to solve the same problem. Stop cheap, fast drones without wasting expensive interceptors. Each has trade-offs. Rifle rounds need trained shooters and work at close range. Jammers depend on the drone using radio control. Pocket nets are single-use but simple and safe because shotguns and rifle magazines are everywhere at the front. Yuri's net round has a big practical edge. It adapts to weapons soldiers already carry, so scaling up distribution is easier than building new high-tech turrets. That said, the Mittler's tiny size and no training-needed design make it attractive too. In short skirmishes, both could be useful. Yuri himself has grown up fast. He's now an adult, still choosing between school, running his startup, and joining the army. For the moment, he's doing all three, taking some classes on his phone, testing rounds at military sites, and training at Centuria, the youth camp run by the 3rd Assault Brigade. His generation is being shaped by war, and many young people like him don't want to sit out. He explains it simply. He's not scared of dying, but he wants to help first. They roll the first crates onto a muddy field at dawn. Cardboard soaked, labels half torn off, soldiers blinking in the cold light, and for a moment, everything feels fragile. Yuri watches from the edge, his hands greasy from assembling rounds the night before, and wonders if the dozen men waiting to load those magazines will ever know how close to home this all began. The gear is simple, but the stakes are not. Training starts with jokes to hide the nerves. Instructors shout over the clatter, how to aim low, how to fire short bursts, how to clear a jam without looking. Teams practice in abandoned buildings and orchard rows, sprinting from cover to cover, while trainers loft cheap quadcopters overhead. At first, the nets miss, or the rounds fall short, and every failure lands like a cold splash, a reminder that test videos and the real front are different things. Then, slowly, the hits begin. A squad fires 3 quick rounds and a drone spirals, caught like a fly in a web. Radios crackle with cheers, then silence as everyone remembers what that silence might mean if it had been a loaded bomb instead. Word spreads along the line. This little thing works. Soldiers tuck extra rounds into pouches and pass them like lucky charms. But supply lines are thin. Truck convoys stall at muddy crossroads. A shipment of jammers gets delayed while a storm wipes out a bridge. There are nights when the men check empty pouches and count the bullets they don't have. Yuri and his friends work feverishly to print parts faster, to smooth a rough edge that causes a jam, to tweak a fuse so it won't fail when it matters most. Each small fix feels like pulling the front line back from the edge. There are questions no one can answer yet. Will scaling up make the rounds too predictable? Will an enemy change tactics and render them useless overnight? A rumor circulates that a rival inventor has a way to cut the net free midair, the kind of whisper that crawls along trenches and sets everyone thinking. For every success, there's that shadow of what could go wrong. Yuri sleeps in 6-hour stretches and dreams in CAD files. He signs papers, answers emails from suppliers, and spends evenings teaching recruits how to clear a jam while his phone buzzes with messages from the brigade. More, faster, please. He feels the weight of each request like a hand on his shoulder. Sometimes he almost chooses the uniform, imagining himself at the firing line instead of behind solder and filament. But then he remembers the workshop and how much the little inventions can do from there. A night raid becomes the moment of truth. Lanterns bob in the dark as sentries scan the sky. Someone spots movement, and a tiny buzzing shape falls into the cone of a helmet lamp. Hands move, breath holds, a shotgun clicks, a round flies, and for a heartbeat, everything slows. The web opens, the drone twitches, then collapses. Cheers rise, but someone coughs, and the mood tightens. They film the scene because that proof can mean more rounds, more funding, more life for the next patrol. Back in Kyiv, men in offices watch the video on loop, counting successes and failures, wondering if this is the edge of a new kind of war or just a brief lucky patch. Brave One emails asking for production numbers. A donor offers to double shipments, but only if testing clears a new batch. The brigade demands more units now. Yuri stares at 2 choices on his screen: sign the contract and scale up, or hold back until every detail is perfect. He knows either path will change everything. For him, for his friends, and for the soldiers who sleep with gardens of empty cups and the sound of distant propellers in their ears.